What is going on, amazing people of the interwebs? Before we get into today's show, I'd just like to tell you I'm crazy about intermittent fasting, not only for weight loss, but for mental benefits. That's why I've created an ebook and I want to share that with you. So you can check that out in the link in my description. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Okay, welcome to the show, guys. How are you feeling today, Nikki?
A little bit nervous. I've never been on anything like this before, so excited though.
No, nothing to be nervous about. And I thought, we're a little bit nervous, a little bit tight. I think we can play a game at the start just to break the ice. So, rapid fire questions. Alrighty, rapid fire questions. So the aim of the game is I'm going to ask you a series of random questions. You can either answer them straight away or take your time and think about the questions. Ready to jump into it?
Yep, ready.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
How do you have your coffee?
Black.
Whoa. All right. Dogs or
Definitely.
cats? Dogs or cats?
What's that?
Dogs or
Dogs.
cat? Pineapple on pizza?
Yes.
Avocado on pizza?
Oh, I've never tried that. Yeah, I did that.
Final question is, would you rather more time or more money?
Well, this is interesting because I've got two little kids, but probably more money.
More money. All right, all good.
Yeah. But
All right, well, hopefully we've warmed up we're all relaxed now. Everyone, I'm kind of warming into the podcast, and I hope that I really want to pick your brain apart today. Not literally, but you're currently on the carnivore diet, from what I can see. Do you mind giving the audience an explanation on what the carnivore diet is?
well, there's different levels of it. I would say there's probably 4 levels of how deep you can go into it, and how, I guess, I don't want to say the word restrictive, but how picky you are about what you're including. There's basically you're just eating animal products, and as you go up the level, so level 1, you would just be having beef fat and salt. Level 4, you're having all different types of meat, all different types of fat, salt, eggs, spices. So it depends on who you are and what you're using it for, basically.
Okay. Speaking of who you are and what you're using it for, you have, from what I understand, you had an autoimmune disease, and you've used the
Yes.
carnivore diet to treat that. Now, I want to give a disclaimer. This is not a medical show by any means, but do you mind expanding on your journey with the carnivore diet and what it's been able to do for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, so all my life I've always had problems with hay fever and asthma, and they've always been really something that's bothered me a lot. I couldn't go to other kids' houses and stay overnight without really suffering with hay fever and asthma. But as I got older, other things, nothing ever particularly life-threatening, but just annoying things, like lots of bloating, and I had this condition called Raynaud's disease, where my circulation in my hands and my feet was never correct. So in the wintertime especially, I get these black spots all over my fingers and my toes. And the doctor, I remember saying to me, it's kind of the early stages of frostbite, so you really need to make sure that you don't let your hands and feet get too cold. But it's an autoimmune condition. Other than that, I noticed as I was getting older, I had my first child, and my digestive symptoms were sort of worsening a little bit. I was getting a lot of bloating, not necessarily after meals particularly, but just all the time, all day long. I started developing this funny rash when I got out of the shower, and I remember inviting my mum.
Sorry, I just want to kind of understand what your diet was before the carnivore diet. Like, what was your average typical diet? What were you eating before?
Well, at that time, I just had my first baby, so I was finding that no matter what I did in the gym, nothing was really working for me. So I connected with this coach, and he basically just got me eating as many carbohydrates as he could possibly get me on. And that was via, obviously, grains, rice, brown rice. So I was eating a hell of a lot of grains, and pretty low protein, not much protein. I was always a little bit scared of, fatty meats and all that. And so it was basically just a little bit of lean protein, no fat, because I was scared of that, and high carbohydrates.
Yeah. It kind of makes sense, leading into all the problems that you're having. The high carbohydrate, we see things like the keto diet, intermittent fasting, all these things coming out, which, like, I'm sure you know the research. I'm not too sure of all the research, but carbs, like an excessive amount of carbohydrates in your diet is not recommended by any means. So
it's so interesting for me now, because I look back and I mean, this guy was a coach for I really wanted to do a physique comp at some point, and his approach, I could understand what he was trying to achieve. He was trying to get my calories as high as possible to then cut, but at the same time, with the knowledge I have now on grains and on how just how these things affect our body, I just think he just had no idea what he was doing. And it was no wonder my conditions were worsening so much.
Wow. All right. Well, I've actually taken a few snapshots from your Instagram. So, all right. So I'm hoping maybe we can just walk through the audience. This is a typical meal, is it? Or
this one not so typical. This one's more of I was doing a bit of experimenting for a little bit on the protein sparing modified fast, if you've heard about that.
I haven't.
There seems to be there's a lot of interest at the moment, and the person I would go to for that information is Maria Emmerich. She's fantastic. But it's basically looking at intermittent fasting, but instead of doing long fasts without consuming anything, you're in fact still consuming protein, a lot of protein, and it just helps to avoid muscle loss. And so on this particular day it was more of a protein sparing day, but the rest of the time I'm focused on high fat as much as I can.
Rapid fire question one. All right. Yep. So sorry, a few technical difficulties there. But yeah, look, we get the idea. Like, we can kind of see like what you're eating there, and there's no carbs, there's no veggies. And speaking of veggies, do you have something against vegetables, or is it you're just trying to follow this diet super strict? Like, what's your idea on that?
Well, I've been doing a lot of research into this, and the way I see the carnivore diet is that depends on what your reasonings are. Now, for me, the research I've done, and I can quote a few different people that I follow their information, and but with plants comes a lot of plant toxins, unfortunately. Plants are, they don't have any defense mechanisms like animals do. So they have a lot of toxins in them. And I mean, I've seen studies where they've shown that, in some plants, you actually get the most. Now, where was it? I'm just looking for the article that I wrote down, but basically, like, they have toxins in them, and in some people this can cause a reaction. Now, when I for me, I'm still trying to figure out exactly which ones seem to be causing me more harm, and this will depend on who you are. It's different for every person. Some people might be okay with, say, broccoli and similar things. Other people won't be able to handle them. So in a good way, and which ones affect me in a bad way. But the thing with plants is that they do come with toxins, and in some people who are prone to autoimmune conditions, they can exacerbate your condition. Where I see it now is that you can live without plants. They're not necessary in a diet. You can get all the nutrients that you need from meat, provided that you're eating a variety of different meats and you're eating nose to tail. So you're eating all the animal, you're eating the organs, you're eating the muscle meats. Plants are not completely necessary. Having said that, I don't think they're the demon either. And I think if you like to have a little bit of variety in your meals, there's nothing wrong with them, provided that they're not affecting you and they're not worsening your health conditions.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, that's that's interesting because variety is the spice of life, and I guess it is an extreme diet. It is a. Do you deviate? I mean, like if you want to have maybe a chocolate cake or something, it's a special occasion. I mean, come on, like it does a what's the rules on that? Like what? Yeah.
Well, if you were to, if anybody that is a hardcore carnivore looks at my Instagram page, they'd probably say, "Well, you're not really a hardcore carnivore. You're doing, I'm including. Well, I've got a coffee right now. Coffee's not really considered carnivore because it's a plant. I have peanut butter sometimes. I have avocado. I really like avocado. The way that I see it is that I don't often feel like I need variety because I find meat so satisfying.
Yeah.
And I also think if you can have like a Scotch fillet every single day at every meal, I don't feel like I ever really need anything else. Having said that, I also believe strongly in, I've got 2 kids, I've got a family, I like to be able to go out and eat. One thing I do like about the carnivore diet is that basically wherever you go, unless you go to a vegan restaurant, there is always an option for meat. You can always get a piece of fish, you can always get a steak, you can always get ribs, you can always get something that is meat-based. When I go out, if it comes with a nice little salad and I feel like a salad, I eat the salad. Right. I'm not completely dogmatic about it. I feel like I've got myself to a point where my autoimmune conditions have really completely disappeared. I don't experience them anymore. So I now know that if I was to eat something that I don't usually eat, it either gives me an immediate reaction. I think, okay, I probably won't have that again for a while. Or it doesn't give me a reaction at all. For example, like peanut butter. There was a time when peanut butter really upset me. It really made my tummy funny and it seemed to be making me quite itchy. But now peanut butter is completely fine. So I think carnivore diet is like a tool that you can use. And for me at the moment, I don't really feel like I miss adding lots of other things in particularly, so I don't. But if I want to, I can.
Absolutely. And touching on, you mentioned that you were a mother. Is this something that you're instilling in your children, the carnivore diet, or what's your approach in that regards?
I'm always vocal to my girls at how proud I am when they prioritize their meat on their plate. Okay. Having said that, though, one of them is 4 and one of them is 18 months. Right. So getting them to choose the steak over the ice cream is almost impossible. Having said that, I try not to keep too many things in the house that I don't want them to have. But then I am also a busy mum. I'm working full-time on my uni course, and I'm amazed at how many times I think to myself, I got to stop bribing. Kinder Surprise does come into the house a lot. But if what I'd like to do with their plates is just to make sure that there is always a piece of quality protein on their plate from a good source, well-raised meat on their plate. And then other little bits and pieces are on there as well for variety for them. I certainly don't cut anything out for them because they're young, and I think kids need variety. But if they prioritize that meat, I let them know that I'm extremely impressed.
A few bonus points. Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, the next question is a bit of more of a moral and ethic one. I recently had a Buddhist. I recently had a Buddhist on the show, and we talked about veganism and vegetarianism. And maybe you're aware of this, but the concept of Buddhism is that we should not be taking the life of a sentient being. Now, I myself am not a vegan or vegetarian, so I can't really speak too much into that. But from a moral and ethics point of view, what are your ideas on killing a cow or killing a live animal for the source of food? Like, do you feel anything like? Can you expand on that?
I think for me, what I aim to do as much as I can is so there's certain things that, well, first of all, I do think human beings are on this planet to eat meat. That's what we've always done. That's ancestrally, that's what we've always done. I am fully on the same page with vegans and vegetarians in their belief that, we've got to treat animals properly, and I'm completely there with you. And when you look at a lot of the ways that meat is, well, the animals are treated, feeding lots, and, cows, chickens, pigs, it's disgusting what they're fed, the way that they're treated. It's just disgusting. What I am very, very strong about is making sure that if you are going to eat meat, you need to, first of all, try and use as much of that animal as you can so that nothing is wasted.
No, nothing to it, yeah.
Absolutely nothing is wasted. And if you can get yourself as close as you can to that source, so you can understand where that animal is coming from, how that animal is raised, who's selling you that animal, making sure that they practice, I'm trying to think of the word, but making sure that they are in line with
ethically, kind
what
of like
you believe is ethics for the animals. And in my opinion, if you can get meat that is from animals that are raised properly, that are out on the grass, that are living the life that they, as close as possible as to what they should be living and what they should be eating, that's what human beings are supposed to do. And if you can take steps to get closer and closer to, number one, using as much of that animal as you can. Like, for example, one thing that I'm a big advocate for is, if you can spend a bit of money at the start, buy a whole half a cow or an entire cow if you can fit it into, your freezer. And then for the next, whatever it is, 2 months, you're eating the exact same animal. And that's all. Can you imagine that if every person on the planet did that, rather than going into the supermarket and going, I'll have a Scotch fillet today, or I'll have lamb chops today, I'll have this. I think people are pulled away from most people would go into a supermarket and buy a bit of chicken or a bit of beef, and they wouldn't even know what part of the animal that's from. The mince could be from one animal, the steak could be from a different animal, and so much of that animal is being wasted in the process. Nobody eats organs these days, and I think it's really sad. A lot of that just goes to waste. And so I think we need to be eating more of the animal, utilizing more of it so that none of it is wasted, and making sure that it is coming from ethically well-raised farms. And also, one thing I believe strongly in is teaching my girls where the food is coming from. I don't want them to see a piece of steak and just think, well, there's nothing. I want them to understand that that has come from a cow that lived on the grass, that is put on your plate to nourish you. And I think if I can teach them or bring them closer to what that animal would have looked like before it ended up on their plate, if that makes sense. So I'm a big advocate for not taking bones out of the piece of meat that I'm giving them. You know, a full chicken looks more like a chicken that was roaming around on the grass rather than just a bit of chicken breast. That doesn't look anything like the animal that was roaming around. If they eat some beef, I want them to see that there's bones in there, that this is an animal and that this animal has been sacrificed in order to nourish us. But I guess in what I'm coming back to is that I do completely understand where vegans and vegetarians are coming from. I'm there with you. But I also think for humans, we need meat. That's as easy as it is. I mean, we are made to eat meat. We need meat to utilize certain nutrients in our body. And if we want to live our best life, meat is in there. You just got to make sure that it's from well-raised sources and that it's ethically raised.
Yeah, absolutely. And what have been the biggest benefits of being on this diet?
Definitely. I mean, it's been an interesting one for me because throughout my whole life, I've always had these autoimmune conditions, especially the Raynaud's disease that I mentioned. Asthma and hay fever were a massive one for me. And, you know, just even little things like often getting headaches and always feeling discomfort with bloating and never really knowing exactly what's causing it, not being able to know what I can eat, what I can't eat, feeling like some things upset it, some things don't. So to be completely at a point in my life where none of these conditions ever bother me anymore, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. And I have heard that people have even managed to get rid of more severe conditions that are just like debilitating to them daily. For me to be able to look back and go, if I get a headache now, for example, I pushed it too hard in the gym or something and I pulled a muscle, I get a headache these days and I'm like, oh my God, I used to live like that every single day. I can't believe I lived like that. You know, even little things like brain fog don't bother me anymore. I mean, I love the idea of having a coffee because I like the taste of it, but I don't feel like I need it in order to get up these days. I just feel like I feel constant every day, the same, happy, got a lot of energy, and
But
yeah,
do you think that's the because you're consuming meat, or is because you're removing the grains and carbs? Like, because
probably both.
Yeah, probably a combination of both. Yeah.
I will say there's certain things that I've noticed. I mean, for me, it was a process, and I went from when I first started looking into it. Of course, I discovered paleo, and I started doing paleo. But of course, paleo still includes a lot of vegetables. Then I went to keto, which brought that down a little bit more. But I still hadn't really completely gotten rid of a lot of the symptoms. I mean, I felt a lot better when I went to paleo from the standard, you know, high grain diet, but I still was suffering with the Raynaud's disease and I still had a lot of hay fever. So for me, it took completely eliminating the plant foods to really see complete resolve. I can't remember where I was going with that one. I guess is it the elimination of the grains and things, or is it the meat?
Yeah.
What I would say is that it's been a journey, and I've been eating this way for about a year now, and really, really sticking with it. And at about the 6-month mark, I started doing more research into the organ meats. And it wasn't until then that I actually started adding them in. When I first started adding them in, I was like, "Oh, that's so gross."
So,
but now I
like
love them.
liver. What are the
Liver,
what are the other sort of
kidney,
kidney? And how do you
heart.
hard. And how are you cooking? Like just like what's a basic recipe? Like bit of olive oil, you cooking with salt, pepper. You can't like if you're a hardcore carnivore, you can't do that, can you? Is it?
Well, I these days am not completely hardcore carnivore. I would say that I'm probably in tier 3 of carnivore, so that's all meats, fat, salt. I don't have dairy because I can't tolerate it, but I have eggs as well. And, as I said, I added a bit of avocado and things like that here and there. But when I first started adding organ meats in, I found, if you've heard of Ketogenic Girl, she does this beautiful chicken liver pate. And that was great for me because it was a transition. It didn't freak me out so much. But now it's almost like the more organ meats I eat, the more I just really crave them, and the less I feel like I need to do anything specific to them to make them enjoyable. So now I just chuck a bit of like beef liver on the barbecue. That's all I need to do. A bit of salt. It's delicious.
Yeah. It probably very satiating. Yeah, satiety. Like it would fill you up.
Have you heard of the protein leverage hypothesis?
No, tell me.
Okay, so this is a really interesting one. One of the people that really seem to have a lot of info on that is, Ted Naiman. Ted Naiman. So his idea is that a person will continuously seek out nutrients until their protein needs are met. So basically his opinion is that if you hit your protein needs, you will be satiated and you won't continuously seek out other sources of food. If you think about animals in the wild, none of them are overweight unless they're raised by humans. None of them are overweight. They just eat until they're satiated and that's it.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me, right? That's why meat, I believe, is so satiating. But I have a theory as well about organs. Organ meats are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. I mean, if you look at beef liver, it's just got basically every nutrient that a person needs. So you could say that if you eat this much beef liver, 20 grams of beef liver a day, you're basically getting all the vitamins and minerals that you need, apparently. So my theory is that if you include organ meats in your diet, you're getting so many nutrients that your body is satiated. It doesn't seek out. It doesn't continuously seek out everything else because it's getting everything it needs.
I guess you'll be filled. Yeah, I guess when you got that chocolate ice cream in the freezer, then it becomes a bit of a problem. It's like more of a willpower sort of thing. Can I not eat this chocolate ice cream?
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting, and this doesn't apply, I think, to everybody, but I know for myself, over time, my taste buds have completely changed. Yeah. I feel like I was always a sweet tooth, but the more I got into keto and the more I controlled my my insulin, I felt like I wasn't craving sweet stuff anymore. And carbohydrates, whether they're from vegetables or from grains or from sugar, straight sugar or chocolate cake or whatever, they all end up being carbohydrates and glucose in the system. And I guess the idea is that the more that you're consuming, apparently with carbohydrates, whether they're coming from sugar or coming from vegetables, whatever, they stimulate a part in the brain that actually makes the hypothalamus apparently believe that if you're consuming those foods, you're not getting enough of the foods that we're ancestrally meant to eat. So they're kind of like, how do I explain this? They signal a part in the brain that says that there is not an abundance of food, so you need to keep eating them in order to get. We must be going into winter, so we need to keep eating them. So the less of that you eat, the less you sort of seem to want them. I'm not explaining that very well, but
I understand your point. Yeah.
It's the less that you eat, the more you seem to crave sugar. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I always notice. I mean, I'm not an expert on the research and all the technical terms, but just my own experience. If I have like a plate of pasta at night, and then in the morning I'm like a little bit more hungry, and I think it's touching on your point, yeah, I'm not sure of the science. Maybe it's just a placebo. I'm not sure, but I think there is some science to back that up. But
Yeah,
it's
I'm
interesting.
not very good at explaining it.
No, I'm not neither.
I've read a lot into it.
Yeah.
But Maria Emmerich has a lot of work on that. She's been on a lot of podcasts, and it's very interesting with her clients. Apparently, the less they have those foods in their life, the less they seem to want them, and there is something going on in the hypothalamus that seems to control that. So very interesting. But I do find for myself, if I'm getting enough protein and fat, and this comes back to the protein leverage hypothesis, I guess, is that protein mainly, if you're hitting your protein needs, your body does become more satiated and you don't seek out other things like that. So I find that if I finish my day with a high protein and high fat meal, I could just keep going and going and going the next day. And I could have a piece of cake in front of me and I don't even feel like it at all. So as time goes on, I think if your body is nourished and it's getting all the nutrients that it needs, you'll do tend to find that it doesn't constantly seek out sugar. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Taste buds change.
Yeah, I had a guy on the podcast, Dr. Alan Goldhammer. He's big into fasting, and yeah, he was speaking of like trying to get rid of sugar, oil, and salt in the diet, and yeah, he was speaking about how the taste buds change, and how like society we keep adding salt to our food, and yeah, we become accustomed to that eventually, but it's all about that gradual restriction, just gradually changing what you eat, and then eventually, yeah, you won't need the sugar, you won't need that fix, you won't go for it, because if you're feeling amazing and you want to keep that feeling up, you want to have that abundance of energy, and yeah,
exactly. I think the key is to be getting enough of what the body does need, as I said, making sure that you're getting the nutrients that you need, and you will feel more satiated. But protein and fat, they're magic when they are together, and they're supposed to be together. You think about any type of meat, it's very uncommon to find meat that doesn't have a form of fat with it. I think most meats are, I don't know the exact ratio, but most meats are a beautiful combination of protein and fat, and they're the most satiating combination. It's amazing. And what is interesting as well with the human body is that we are constantly renewing. I mean, I don't know the exact time frame, but I read somewhere that within I could be completely off on my timeline, but I think over like 3 months or something, you're completely brand new, or years. I don't know what it is, but with your cells constantly renewing and constantly changing, it is amazing how you can, your body does adapt to different, diets and different tastes, and yeah, it's very interesting. Human body's fascinating.
Have you experimented with intermittent fasting?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of intermittent fasting. I personally, I only use time restricted eating for myself because I'm really lean, and that's another interesting thing for me, is that for my entire life, I've always had weight loss resistance. My entire life, like I used to look at my brothers and just go, how are they so lean, whereas I have to do so much. Like I used to have to work out like 7 days a week, and I would work out so hard, and I'd be so picky about how much fat I had in the day, and I'd count every single calorie for years. Like since I was like 12 years old, I've always been super aware of it, and I've always felt like it's something that I have to be onto. But what's interesting is that now I almost have trouble keeping weight on. I just feel like I must have had a lot of inflammation that was just holding on to weight, whereas now I don't have to do much at all. I go to the gym if I have time. I certainly don't count anything. I don't track anything. I just eat what I feel
Yeah.
like I eat to satiety. But with intermittent fasting, I think it's an amazing tool. But for somebody like me who's very lean, I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't go for days without eating, because with intermittent fasting, you one of the benefits of it is that you're tapping into your fat stores, and you're allowing your body to tap into that and burn the body fat as fuel.
Yeah.
But if I went for more than a few days, I'd probably run out of fuel to use, because I am very lean. For me, I really like TRE, so I like to put all my meals close together. I usually do around 18:6. So I fast for about 18 hours, and then 6 hours is my eating window. And I feel like that works really well for me. Sometimes it's slightly more if I'm really busy. So sometimes it's less if I'm out with family and we go out to eat, or if I'm just hungry. Interestingly, if I've got a lot going on with uni, or my girls are being a bit hard at work, I find myself becoming more hungry. It just goes to show
Yeah.
that the brain is, even if I haven't actually done more exercise, your brain is just using so much
I know that.
fuel. So in
Yeah, I've
those
heard that
times,
the
I feel like I need
brain's.
to eat more frequently.
Yeah, the brain's a big consumer of fuel, definitely. But
Fascinating.
yeah, like I'm massive into intermittent fasting, and I find it in the morning. Maybe if I'm doing a bit of writing, or maybe I don't know, some work on something, the focus and sharpness is definitely there. You're not bogged down by any sort of food coma.
Yeah.
Yeah, your body's just effective. I feel so.
Yeah. Have you ever done an OMAD or more
Um,
fasting?
uh, I've like every now and again, like I did, like I haven't done it consistently. I just did maybe once or twice. I did. I'm a big believer in extended fast. So every year I try and do one extended fast. So I did last year. I did one with my dad. We did 3-day fast together,
Wow.
and
How did you feel?
yeah, great. I was fine. The only thing that I kind of cheated, because I was drinking coffee. I was drinking black coffee. That was the only thing that I was having, because I love coffee. Like, it's in my veins, you know.
Mm.
So I did, yeah. And I remember my mum. We kind of went back to the house, and my mum made this awesome meal. It was like meat, and it was just everything. It was just like veggies, meat, everything, and then we had like what was it? Like a cheesecake to finish after 3. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's kind of like defeats the purpose of doing the fast. But no, it was like we really enjoyed that meal, and that's the thing. That's another benefit of fasting. It's, when you're very appreciative of the food that you're eating, and you're very mindful. You're very present in the moment.
Mm,
Yeah, when you eating.
absolutely. I think what's interesting with intermittent fasting, and as I said, I've actually never done an extended fast, because ever since I've started doing all this research, I've actually become so lean. So I've never felt like I
Yeah.
should do it. Having said that, if I've had a really busy day, and and I've gone to like 23 hours or something, 20, OMAD, it's like the longer you go, the more your brain just taps into some
It
other
does, doesn't it?
like
Yeah.
level. I
Yeah.
just feel like I've got so much energy, and I feel like I could just keep working, and it's like your brain becomes more and more efficient. And I heard a theory, I can't remember where I heard it from, but what it basically said was that, human beings are we're made to be able to intermittent fast, because there wouldn't have always been food available to us.
Yeah,
We might have
absolutely.
killed an animal, and say it was a woolly mammoth, and then we would have probably feasted for a few days, and then that meat would have gone off, and then we might not have been able to find another kill for a few days. So we're made to be able to intermittent fast. And I guess that's why the body adapts and becomes more efficient when you are fasting, because the theory is that the longer you go without eating, the more the body needs to become more efficient, and the brain needs to work even harder in order to make that next kill. So your senses become heightened, you know, you become quicker, your brain works better. It makes sense. If you've gone 5 days without making a kill, you need your brain to be, and your body to work as efficiently as possible, so that the next animal that comes along, you can get that animal. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a quote that goes along the lines of a country is born stoic and ends up being Epicurean. So it's like I think the Epicureans were like big into like drinking wine and like overindulging in food and into the fine arts, and it's like I think the idea is like overconsumption of food is like gluttony. It's like it's like you're not what are you doing with your life? You know, there's so many awesome things. There's so many avenues you could be making your life better, but you're over consuming, or you're deciding what to eat, or you're, you know, it's
I think it's interesting. I think a big part of any healthy lifestyle, it doesn't matter what you're eating, I just think it's so important to be present in the moment with what you are eating. And it's amazing what an influence that seems to have on digestion, and there's actually been studies on it. I can't quote one right now, but it's extremely important to be present in the moment when you are eating, so that you can digest it properly, you can enjoy it. I mean, my ex-husband is French, and one thing that amazed me when I met him was just how the French are so, I mean, eating to them is just such a big deal, you know, that and maybe everything they're eating isn't the most healthful thing. I mean, they eat a lot of croissants and things like that, but you know, they drink their wine and they eat their food, and it's all about tasting what they're eating and enjoying it with their family and eating around the table. And it's not just about the food that they're eating, even it's about the people that they're with, and I just think other cultures, I mean, I don't want to put down Aussies, but I mean, growing up, my parents were fantastic. My parents have always been fantastic. I can't fault them, but you know, we often ate in different rooms and by the TV, and I think Americans tend to do that a lot as well. But I think we all need to take a leaf out of the page of the French and Italians, and they really enjoy food.
Yeah, well, my mum's Italian, my father's Australian, so I'm kind of like best of both worlds. So there's a strong sense of family. There's a strong sense of there's a strong respect towards the dinner table. You know, it's like you know, you have to kind of sit here, and you know, it's like we have to be we're going to be a family. You know, it's like But that's like touching on it's like touching on the Mediterranean diet. Sorry, I kind of cut you off there. I know the Mediterranean diet is really I think like people that live to over 100, like they're eating, you know, these they're mainly on the Mediterranean diet. Walter Longo did a study.
The reason I'll be honest, I haven't done a whole lot of research into the Mediterranean diet. I'm sure it will come up in my course at some point, but I think from what I've heard about it, I think the reason why it could possibly be so effective is because it's whole food based. You know, it's not a lot of, even though, I don't know, would the Mediterranean diet be considered high in grains? I don't know, like pastas and things like that. I don't know.
There is some consumption. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think overall, though, a whole food diet, if you can get closer and closer to what is natural, you're going to be doing you're going to be doing your body good. So actually, it was interesting recently. I was listening to a podcast. I don't know if you're aware of Paul Saladino, Carnivore MD.
I have, yes. I've kind of, yeah.
He's done
really
some
good.
interesting ones, but recently he and another guy, Anthony Gustin, stayed with one of the last living tribes in the world called the Hadza.
Wow.
And actually, might not have been them, but it might have been. Anyway, so basically, they were staying with the tribe, and they were looking at these tribal people dancing. And apparently, there was a woman who was 120 years old dancing with her 90-year-old daughter. And I just think that's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, whatever that woman and her 90-year-old daughter have done,
it's working
right for their bodies.
Well, those people in the Hamza, yeah, they're subjected to very extreme conditions, and I guess over time their body has adapted. I was listening to some podcast, and they were saying, like their gut biome, they kind of did some tests, and it was, it was extraordinary. Like the results that came back, because their bodies has adapted to all these extreme situations, and then comparing it to the Western world, we're comfortable sitting on the couch and watching Netflix, so it's a big contrast between the two. So I can see, yeah.
It is interesting. I mean, these people, according to these two guys that stayed with them, these people completely have, they have no lifestyle diseases. I mean, like if we look at the main causes of death these days, diabetes, heart disease, I mean, autoimmune conditions are so prevalent these days. Basically, everybody has some form of autoimmune. Every second person that's our parents' age is either insulin resistant or has diabetes or has some kind of heart condition that they're taking medication for. And what's interesting is that looking at these tribes, I mean, I don't necessarily want to go and live in the wild again. I mean, there's some certain things that make their life incredibly difficult, like childbirth. I mean, they don't have hospitals. They give birth next to a tree, apparently. There's some things like infections and that they live with that's horrendous. But they are completely void of any lifestyle conditions. Like apparently when these guys asked them about depression, and they were like, what? What's that? Nobody suffers with anything like that over there. The only thing these people die of are childbirth related issues. If they get an infection, they don't have the same medical help. But other than that, that's what they die of.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
I know there's some kind of Eastern philosophy, like it kind of touches on the rational mind, and kind of speaking into your point about anxiety, like the Eastern philosophy is always like, you shouldn't really try to, I guess in the Western society, we try and break things down to its absolute corest principle. Like we always want to understand how things are, and we want to keep trying to understand how things are and keep trying to understand. Whereas Eastern philosophy is accepting the way of, I believe it's the Tao. It's just accepting the way life is, and we can control what we can control, and whatever we can't control, we leave that out. And I think anxiety, I think it's like with anxiety, I can't speak for everybody, but it's almost like this perfect OCD. Like it's your mind is almost eating itself when you become anxious about something.
Well, can I say it's interesting for me, and I certainly wouldn't. I don't want to group anybody, but I mean, one thing I didn't mention was just how many anxiety issues I used to have myself, and I certainly was never diagnosed with anything, but I've had some issues in my life that I've had to seek out help for. I saw a counsellor for quite a while for OCD, and and that just doesn't, it's just not a problem for me anymore. And I think, as you said, I think the lifestyle that we live these days and the stress that we're constantly exposed to in many different forms, you know, we are all constantly living in a bit of a chronic stress state.
Yeah.
On top of that, the way that we eat and our lifestyle choices certainly exacerbate it. And I know for me, I live in the same world that I grew up in. Nothing has changed. In fact, stress has probably increased in my life. I've gone from when I was probably seeking the most help for anxiety. You know, I was 20, 21, you know, had a boyfriend at the time. I was studying nutrition, but that was about all that was stressful in my life. I've got 2 kids now. I'm just gone through a divorce. I mean, I'm doing study full time, but yet really anxiety levels completely different. So I think diet and sorting out any autoimmune conditions that you have, healing your gut is a massive one for anxiety and depression. And I mean, I have a lot of interest in conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's, and how in a lot of ways they can be associated with gut issues. And I do wonder how many people, I certainly don't want to box people, and I don't want to say this is the reason for everybody's depression and anxiety, but I do believe that there is a strong connection between the way that you eat and your mental health.
Absolutely. Yeah, I second that. And on that note, I might have to wrap up the podcast. But it's been lovely speaking with you, Nikki. And I've put your Instagram there, so if people want to follow you, they can do that. And any last messages that you'd want to send out, or?
I would love to say that anybody who is having trouble with any, you know, health conditions, and they're not getting where they want to be with, you know, paleo, keto, give it a try. It's not a life sentence. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. You know, people love variety, and I certainly believe in variety in your life. But if you've tried a lot of other things and it's not working, try the carnivore diet for a little while. It can be a bit magical. Do 6 weeks of it, really stick to it, and then add things back in, and you might find that there is one food that's just causing all your problems, and it just could be the answer for you. It's been the answer for me. So give it a try. Don't be scared of it. It's good fun.